today I want to take you through the Next.js JavaScript ecosystem and how deployment is usually done, and a project that I have been working on for NextDeploy. So if you want these slides, you can actually scan the QR code and it takes you there. So if you want the URL and you don't have a phone, so you can just go hersi.com laptop. Then if you click this, you just it takes you to that uh, this slide. So today I'm Hersi, as I said. So I like building infrastructure projects mostly in Go. I also use JavaScript, mostly Next.js, and I've been also learning React Native and trying to build a mobile app, but it's my first mobile app, so I don't have any experience to share on that. So NextDeploy is a tool that I built myself to deploy Next.js web apps only on either a VPS that you own or a Cloudflare workers and AWS Lambda functions. Those three categories of deployment. So basically, I will take you through everything in 4 stages. First, if you know how the internet works, and I'll just take you through basic intro to the internet, the JavaScript ecosystem, and how it relates to that, to the to NextDeploy and the deployment pipeline, where code easily runs. Like if you develop a web app or a software, your code needs to run somewhere, whether it's in your local machine or someone else's machine. It's basically the cloud, and how NextDeploy fits into all of that. So let us start. So I think most of you know how the internet works. So I'm just trying to connect that to myself and how NextDeploy works. So the internet is just a huge network of file sharing systems. So people actually just share files, whether it's code files or images and videos and stuff like that. So the gateway to the internet is usually, for most people, is the browser. So if you now want to visit nextdeploy.org and then you enter the URL into a browser, and 300 milliseconds, something that's very advanced happens. A lot of steps, a lot of things happen. So one of the first things that happens is maybe something called the browser asks for the DNS domain name system, where that maybe URL website is hosted, where the code of that website is hosted. So the domain name system gives back maybe an IP address, and that IP address is where now like the browser starts to do the TCP handshake and all the things that go under the hood. So it sends a GET request and then it asks for maybe the index of HTML. It's usually the first stage. So for example, for nextdeploy.org, it will be like the first stage of the website. So most of the time now, when a server, when the connection is usually successful, servers only send most of the time HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So HTML is now what gives now like the structure of the web app. So the elements that you see, the buttons and everything, are the HTML that's rendered on the browser's rendering engine. Most browsers have a render engine. It's written in C++, and it has some kind of engine that knows exactly
your state manipulation before the rendering happens. So by the time it makes it easier to develop web application instead of actually managing the DOM and manipulating events that usually happen when someone clicks something. So now that React library was created by Facebook, and JavaScript was a front-end thing always. It has always been a front-end thing. It has been always something that lived in the browser. So in 2009, a guy called Ryan Dahl created Node.js. Node.js is it's a runtime for JavaScript. So the way now programming languages in of themselves are runtime. Like for example, Python is the runtime itself. So JavaScript doesn't have such thing. So it can't run on a server. It can't access file systems. It can't access network sockets and stuff like that. So in 2009, this guy called Randall created Node.js, which is wrapped around C++ primitives, so system calls and stuff like that, so that you can actually run, you can actually server side. So now we have a Node.js runtime, which is a JavaScript, which can be written with JavaScript, and then you have the React, which is a component-based library for creating UI. So now the next ideal thing will be to combine both and then create something called NextJS. NextJS is just a combination of Node.js and React.js, and it was created at Vercel by this guy called Guillermo and the team, and it was open source in I think 2016 around there. So it gives you the ability to actually create a front-end code and a back-end code in the same repository in a kind of like a full stack environment. So now you have your Next.js web app and you have a server-side runtime and a front-end, and you combine them and you build your web application. You have authentication set up, you have the dashboard. You want to now, it runs on localhost, and you want to run your code in a way where your code is accessible to everyone around the world. So what do you need? You need a computer that's always on and something to keep the app alive just in case of something happens, it can be restarted and stuff like that. A domain name pointed to that, so that when someone enters, people don't know about IP addresses, so you want them to have a domain name, and then they can actually just go to that domain name and enter, and then they get your website. So there are two ways to put code on in terms of like when you talk about Next.js. You have serverful and serverless environment. So serverless environment and serverful environment is just kind of the same thing, but there's somehow the most important thing is the question of who keeps your process alive. So if you have a process running on a server in a VPS, most of the time you have to write the logic for restarts and stuff like that, and also dependency installation and stuff like that. So on a serverful environment, it's a computer that you rent a whole. So it can be an EC2 instance or a VPS that, like for example, I mostly use DigitalOcean, so maybe a DigitalOcean droplet, and it's always on and warm. So that means that you are paying for the uptime, even if you're not using it. So you're also responsible for some of the things like updates and restarts, and also certifications. Like if you're hosting a website on that server and then we're using a reverse proxy like Nginx, so you're responsible for certifications, management and stuff like that. So on a serverless environment, this is a totally different, a bit of a different thing. So it's a function as a service most of the time, and it works in a way that it's only on when requests are being processed by your web app. So like it depends on the invocation. So if a request is not coming to your web app or whatever you're hosting there, whether it's a backend, it's off. So how NextDeploy fits in on all of this is, for example, if you want to deploy a web app to a server, you can install this project called NextDeploy that I built. It's a CLI, and you can actually just do NextDeploy in it, and you prepare your server, and then you load the secret to the server, and then you ship, and then your website becomes automatically online. So we have shown a live demo, but the guy is saying time's up. So I think the takeaway is you can actually use this template to deploy your Next.js web apps if you're interested. And if you want the slides for this talk, they're here. And if you want to know more about NextDeploy, you can visit nextdeploy.org. This is the website for the project. Yeah, that's all. I think time's up. So, any questions?
What's the URL?
NextDeploy.org.
Okay.
Yeah.